Hi everybody, I hope you're having an amazing day today. I thought that we could do something a little bit different and talk about our inner child. That's why I'm kind of dressed like this. I never seem to have a reason to get to wear my cloak. I find whenever we do rituals together or out in the public, everyone's kind of just dressed in normal clothes, which I think is smart. I think it's good not to draw too much attention to yourself, but I would really like a chance to wear my cloak. So I thought, what better way to do that than to get a little bit dressed up, get a little excited, and do a video on how to connect with your inner child. It's easier than you think, and it's something that I think a lot of us don't do. I thought an easy way to get connected to my inner child was to put on my cloak and do my makeup however I wanted, which I absolutely love, by the way, not to toot my own horn. I mean, I know I look a little tired, but that's what happens when you don't sleep. Anyway, I'm rambling. I thought that this would be fun, and I thought to do this, to embrace the inner child, we would read a story. Well, I'll read you a story. So when was the last time someone read you a story? Especially if you're an adult. You probably read stories to your children, but when was the last time someone read a children's story to you? So that's what I kind of want to do today. So even if you're just sitting and watching this video or listening, I hope that this will help you connect with a part of yourself that maybe you haven't thought about in a long time. I know that childhood isn't always easy for everyone, and not everyone has good memories from childhood. So you could really use, I'm just fixing the light here, you could really use this as a way to heal yourself and heal those memories or heal those times and give yourself the childhood that you wanted and do little things for that inner child. It will help you. It will also help anyone who just wants to feel a little bit youthful, or if you want to go back to a time when you had less worries or less responsibilities and you were a lot less stressed out. So inner child work is something that we all can benefit from. So I really hope that this story helps you connect with your inner child. If you have little witchlings, please feel free to let them watch this video. I give you a no bad word guarantee. And yeah, I want to dedicate this reading to all the pagan parents out there and all of your little witchlings. I myself do not have children. I bought this book when I was really young in hopes to have children someday to read it to, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to be in the cards for me. So I'm dedicating this video to you and all the pagan parents and all the little pagan children out there. So just let Auntie Tasha read you a little story. So just get comfy and relax and enjoy. This book is called Witches in the Kitchen, A Year in the Life of a Junior Witch, and it was written by Blair and Anne-Marie Drawson. The Witch Song. Who were the witches? Where did they come from? Maybe your great-great-great-grandma was one. Witches were wise, wise women, they say, and there's a little witch in every woman today. Bonnie Lockhart. The Kitchen Witch Promise. To obey the laws of Mother Nature, to respect and preserve her queendom and her works. Dear Grimoire, January 1st. Today is New Year's Day, and I am writing in you for the very first time. In you, Grimoire, I will keep every witch idea that enters my mind, and may no one, even so much as dare, to pry into my secrets, unless, of course, they have achieved the rank of Junior Witch. My hood's falling down. All violators of this rule can expect to have the Hex Major, sounds intense, cast upon them instantly. I mean it. A special note to Aunt Nettle, Aunt Thistle, and Granny Grackle. Please respect my privacy. Okay? Thank you, Ivy, Junior Witch. Here I am, posing by a witchwood tree in winter. The witchwood, or rowan, or mountain ash, take your pick, is a tree most sacred to witches. A grimoire is a witch's journal or book of shadows, and they are pretty much the same thing. Grimoire, I might as well confess, a heartless teacher gave me an F for flunkage in cooking skills. Well, so what if my tuna noodle casserole was less than perfect? Okay, it was an icky stink bomb actually, and the less said about it the better. Anyway, the result is that my mother has sent me away for a whole year to learn the art of kitchen witchery from my two spinster aunts, Thistle and Nettle. Oh, and Granny Grackle too. Granny Grackle is the senior member of our coven. She is also a certified crone, the highest rank in witchcraft, and therefore very respected. You don't get to be a crone until you have lived for a very long time and learned all sorts of advanced witch lore. Also, your nose and chin must have grown close enough together for you to hold a walnut between them. Granny Grackle passes the walnut test with flying colors. Plus, her nose and chin are adorned with several warts, of which she is very proud. And there's Granny Grackle. As for my aunties, they are both intermediate witches. That means they are halfway to being full-fledged crones. Aunt Nettles has the nose, a magnificent one, and Aunt Thistle, the chin, equally grand. So, I suppose the two of them combined would make up one complete crone. Grimoire, my own nose hasn't even started to beak. Ditto for my chin, not a single wart. The aunties keep telling me my nose is positively cute. Well, I don't want it cute, thank you very much. A cute nose is often unfairly associated with lack of lore. Spinster, an unmarried woman. Some think this is a negative word, but witches know it simply means a woman who spins, as in wool. Here's the aunties. My aunties are true kitchen witches. They really know their way around a cauldron, and they have a pantry full of very witchy things. A baldness reversal charm from China, an opossum's jawbone from Appalachia that's supposed to help nursing mothers, an amulet from a real Egyptian mummy used for fixing any food that's gotten too salty. I need that. Where are we? Resin of dragon's blood from Peru, used for the double quick healing of wounds, and some poisoned arrows from Africa, and a real stuffed Egyptian cobra, both of which I must be very careful around. Plus, they have a shrunken head named El Captain from the Amazon jungle. And there's their pantry. On top of that, the aunties have an assortment of truly weird foods that they assure me are real delicacies. Chocolate-coated insects, cod cheeks, pemmican, camel's foot pads, dried beaver tails. We've got beaver tails in Canada and they're delicious. Ancient eggs, buffalo jerky, whale blubber, yak butter, goat tripe, jellied eels, monkey brains, oxtail soup, bird's nest soup, rattlesnake stew, and deep fried grubs. I guarantee, Grimoire, I'm not making this up. More lore, Grimoire. Did you know that? And although the auntie's delicates are actual foods, a lot of witches do in the kitchen, or otherwise for that matter, is shrouded in a cloak of secrecy. There's the cloak. There we go. Witches use codes, signs, invisible inks, and all sorts of other devices to confuse the non-witch and send the unwary on a wild goose chase. It's all part of the need to shield ourselves from prying eyes and misunderstanding. You see, in the bad old days, witches were feared. Because of that, they were often deprived of their property and sometimes drowned or burned at the stake, even though they didn't do anything wrong. An elderly lady living alone, perhaps, with a cat to keep her company, was likely to have the darkest suspicions cast upon her, and might have been treated in the cruelest way. Is it any wonder that witches became secretive? Only now are modern witches able and willing to share more of their craft with the outside world. And thank goodness for that. Everybody has heard of eye of newt and toe of frog, right? Also wool of bat and tongue of dogs. Those words are from old witch's incantation found in Shakespeare's Macbeth. They sound pretty creepy. I mean, who would want to use such nasty, gruesome ingredients, and for what purpose? Well, guess what? They weren't real nasty ingredients at all. It was just witches' code for plants and herbs that could easily be found in the garden or fields nearby. The code was to prevent people who lacked lore from making a mess of things. For instance, from trying to prepare a potion that was beyond their ability. So Eye of Newt meant nothing more than a daylily, or a daisy, or black-eyed Susan, or any flower that had an eye. And Tongue of Dog meant hound's tongue, a common herb that was said to quiet the barking dogs. Here are some others. Candlewick plant is mullein, and I may pronounce some of these wrong, kids. Dwale, deadly nightshade. Enchanter's plant, vervain. Dew of the sea, rosemary. Password, primrose. Joy of the mountain, majoram. Little dragon, tarragon. 7 years love, yarrow. I like that one. I'm a romantic. Sorcerer's violet, periwinkle. Bat's wings, holly. Calf's snout, snapdragon. Love and idleness, pansy. Lover root. Orris. Witch's fingers, foxglove. Mullein, yarrow, and vervain are 3 very important herbs in a witch's pantry and garden. In olden times, mullein leaves were dried and rolled and burned as candle wicks. When powdered, the plant was known as graveyard dust. March 13th. Aunt Nettle decided to do some baking today. The trouble was, she couldn't quite remember the recipe for cheeky Choco Witch cookies. Grimoire, just between you and me, I have noticed that Granny and my aunties can be rather forgetful. Anyway, I was reading the Kitchen Witch's Guide to Household Management when I heard Aunt Nettle call out, "Thistle, dear, do you remember how to make cheeky Choco Witch cookies?" "Negative," came Aunt Thistle's voice from the scullery. "But I thought I saw Omen playing with the recipe book not long ago. Did you ask him?" I was miffed that no one thought to ask me. Not that I would have done much good, I suppose, since I didn't know either, but I had appreciated the gesture, and it would have been easier than trying to get a word out of Omen, because you see, he's our familiar. And there's Omen. A note about familiars. First of all, don't call them pets. They will resent it and hold it against you. Familiars are useful in all sorts of ways, but their main purpose is to be helpful companions. A lot of silly misinformation about familiars is spread by TV and the movies. For one thing, familiars don't really talk. It would be cute if they did, but they don't. They simply read minds. Of course, familiars are the first to sense a ghost if one is nearby, and they can usually tell right away if you are honest or crooked. They are inclined to be grouchy at times, especially when they have fleas. Then a flea reversal spell is necessary. Look at this little cute witch. Grimoire, my aunties have the greatest, loveliest, smartest, most adorable familiar you could wish for. Omen, the cat. He's like the smart assistant in stories who seems to be invisible, really runs everything. Whenever something truly weird and mysterious happens, you can bet you'll find Omen somewhere nearby, calmly licking a paw and smiling wickedly to himself, as if he were in on some really awesome secret, which he probably is. Again, Aunt Thistle's voice came booming from the scullery. "Did you think to consult the cauldron, sister?" she emerged, wiping her hands from her apron. "We can always try that." "Why, yes, of course," said Aunt Nettle with much enthusiasm. "Ivy, dear," she turned to me, "will you put the kettle on, please? We'll have a nice cup of catnip tea while we prepare the cauldron." Granny Grackle has a blackbird familiar named Finbar, who goes everywhere with her, often riding under her hat with only his beak protruding. Finbar, unlike Granny, has a terrific memory. With almost 3,000 recipes in his head, he communicates with her in a language only she can understand, and he indicates quantities by tapping his beak. So while I made the tea, the aunties heated up the cauldron and got it good and boiling. Aunt Nettle poured a handful of dried alphabet soup and cast it into the mix. Then, while Aunt Thistle stirred the pot, being careful to always move the spoon in a clockwise direction, Aunt Nettle recited the following incantation: "Cauldron, cauldron, now and then, who, how, why, where, and when, answer me my question so I need not ask again." Then she paused for a moment and asked, "Cauldron, this is where question, where is my recipe for cheeky Choco Witch cookies?" This is a where question. Sorry, kids. While we waited quietly for the cauldron to gather its thoughts, Aunt Nettle stared into space with a goofy, unfocused look in her eyes. I realized that she was contributing to the incantation in her own witchy way by bringing her thoughts into harmony with the cauldron's. Finally, the alphabet soup letters started to float to the surface. First a B, then an E, followed by an H and an I and D. The word lingered on the surface for a moment, then drifted away. Then came an O, an M, an E, an N, and an S. And there it was at last, the complete message, behind Omen's bed. "Why, that little demon!" exclaimed aunties in unison. Aunt Nettle hurried off to Omen's sleeping nook and returned a moment later, holding a crumpled slip of paper covered in cobwebs. "Here it is, the recipe. It was just where the cauldron said it was," she declared with satisfaction. "That rascal of an Omen must have been batting it around with his paws, and it ended up in the corner behind his bed." We all felt very relieved and celebrated, with a large pot of piping hot catnip tea. And of course, Omen wanted his too. April 9th. Today I helped Aunt Nettle with some pesky chores around the house. Fortunately, Grimoire, we had the cauldron to help us in the who, how, why, where, and when matters, so questions and details got handled as if by magic. We were just about finished when Auntie invited me to practice an advanced cauldron incantation. This is where a qualified witch asks the cauldron to reveal any deeper secret or further information that it wishes us to know. So carefully, I recited the incantation, which goes like this. "Cauldron, cauldron, cooking pot, tell me true or tell me not. Tell me now this most important message of the lot." To our surprise, the cauldron wasted no time in presenting the words, "See, Granny." The cauldron often misspells. In some alarm, we all hopped on our bikes. Well, in my case, I rode on Aunt Thistle's handlebars, since I don't have a bike of my own, and rode to Granny's house, wondering all the way what on earth could be wrong. When we arrived at the little cottage, we were treated to the sight of Granny in full cone regalia, riding her broom in swooping loops above the treetops and cackling with glee. "Hello, girls," she shouted merrily. "I see you got my wee message. Spring is on his way, girls. Spring is on its way." "Are you all right, Granny?" we called to her. "Never better, girls," she called back. "Never better. Earlier I did feel a wee pain in my bones and a spasm in my old toes, but a spin on the broom cheered me up very nicely, thank you." And there's Granny on the broom. Broom cauldron in familiar lore. Nowadays, broom flying is considered showing off, and it has fallen out of favor with the modern urban witch. She prefers to get around by bicycle, bus, taxi, or subway, reserving the broom for special occasions only, such as witches' jamborees and never before dark. That's totally taboo. Crones, however, and country witches in general, have a different attitude entirely, and they will fly whenever the whim strikes them. Granny Grackle, of course, is one of these. She has an assortment of really splendid brooms, which she always is trying out. Flying brooms are crafted by male witches, like my daddy, who live deep within forests where the best woods grow. The sweet part is made of rowan, birch, willow, hazel, or hawthorn twigs, and it is bound to the broom handle, which is made with a heavier stick of ashwood, maple, or the broom plant itself. By the way, the traditional name for a broom made this way is besom, pronounced besom. Witches often store their brooms by the doorway of their homes, sweeping up, believing that this ensures that unwelcome energy stays outside. But here's a tip. You can also rid your house of displeasing people and negative energy by sprinkling salt on the floors. Then, as you sweep the salt out the door, the bad energy goes flying out with it. And good riddance, too. When it comes to cauldrons, it is not unusual for witches to actually talk to theirs. They just do. Witches also speak to their knives and forks and spoons, as well as to any and all pots and pans, and always with proper respect. Not only that, but witches will often sing or whistle in the kitchen, believing that it gives flavor and zest to food and potions, just as much as herbs and spices do. Also, stirring the cauldron clockwise is standard procedure if you want a spell to succeed or a recipe to turn out. It's also important for all incantations to be accompanied by respectful silence. Of course, cauldrons appreciate being well cared for. This means keeping them fresh and free from icky buildup that happens when certain potions are allowed to dry inside, or so my aunties tell me. As for familiars, they come in all shapes and sizes. The commonest ones are cats, of course, or birds, such as crows, hawks, or owls. Chickens can also be familiars. Other common familiars are bats, which are very good for the witch who likes to stay up really late, and goats, deer, bears, rats, and even insects. Dogs can be familiars, especially ones with wolf-like characteristics, like pointed ears and snouts. In general, wild creatures make better familiars. Most dogs are usually too cuddly and domesticated for that. Well, I disagree. The most important thing to know, though, is that your familiar must actually be earned. No one can give you your familiar, and you certainly can't buy one. Your familiar will come to you when you are ready, and not a moment sooner. I wonder what my familiar will be. And I think you can buy your familiar as well, or adopt your familiar. But that's for another video, all about male witches. Male witches are sometimes mistakenly called warlocks, but that is really kind of an insult. Just call them male witches. They often devote themselves to making things out of metal or wood. They are good with trees, reptiles, and larger animals like bulls, bison, and bears. They can be astonishingly good cooks. Some male witches live in caves or even under the ground in pits or mine shafts. Others reside in castles made of stone. Still others prefer to dwell in elaborate tree houses, hidden away in remote forests. Some male witches are solitary and suspicious of outsiders. These are known as hedge witches. They can be short-tempered and grouchy for no apparent reason at all. Granny's brother, and therefore my great-uncle, mysterious Uncle Burr, is an honest-to-gosh hedge witch. Male witches don't like to shave. Instead, they grow beards of great length and weirdness, trimming them, braiding them, and twisting them into fanciful shapes. Ditto for hair, mustaches, and eyebrows, even nose hairs. Ew. Male crones are called wizards or sorcerers. They use magic to bring about change quickly. Male witches who use technology are called quicks or whiz witches. The others, the ones who like to work with their hands, planting, growing, and making things, are known as hand witches or slows. In this way, slows are a lot like kitchen witches. There's a male witch. My daddy is a hand witch. He is one of the triplets, the three trees, as they are called. His name is Bramble Tree, and his two brothers are Bracken and Briar. Cute, yes. Well, you wouldn't think so if you saw them. The three trees are famous for making the very best things out of metal, and you guessed it, wood. They work together so closely that you can't tell them apart, except by their noses and beards. They make the best cauldrons on the planet. Ditto for their forks, spoons, and horseshoes. Out of wood they make great signs and signposts, either carved or made to grow that way. Like the title of this book, everyone agrees that when it comes to signs, the three trees are the best. Their trademark looks like this. Beltane, or may I make a May basket? Yes, Grimoire, you may. You may gather some goodies, bread, tea, cookies, cake, honey, fruit, flowers, potpourri, and a poem or a greeting, anything nice, especially something you made yourself with love. You may decorate your basket with more flowers, leaves, or a hem, ivy. That's always nice, right? Remember to follow the custom. Leave the May basket by the front door of your chosen king or queen of the May. Then ring the doorbell and run away and hide. After his or her ecstatic response, you may come out from hiding, or you may simply go home, leaving a May Day mystery for your friend to figure out. There she is with her basket. Grimoire, the first day of the merry month of May, is known to witches as Beltane, a time of fun and surprises. So today I'm going to bring a May basket to Granny Grackle. I was just leaving when Aunt Thistle, who has a bunion on her big toe that tells her when the weather is about to change, said to me, "My toe is paining me, Ivy. Better wear a raincoat, dear. It's going to pour." Well, I don't think so. I mean, the weather is absolutely, positively, flawlessly, awesomely beautiful. There wasn't so much as one cloud in sight. Sometimes I think my darling aunties and their silly superstitions are just a bit too old-fashioned, really. I set off on Aunt Noodle's bike and breezed down the path to Granny's cottage. I put the basket by Granny's front steps and knocked the knocker and ran away to hide behind a tree. When Granny saw the basket, she let out a little shriek of joy. She knew perfectly well where I was hiding, of course, but pretended that she didn't. When she found me, she gave me 3 things: a granny hug, a thank you for the May basket, and a lecture on how unpredictable the weather can be at Beltane. "Now, Ivy, where is your rain cloak, child?" she asked. "But Granny," I protested, "look, it's really warm out. There's beautiful clear blue sky, for gosh sakes." Granny only shook her head. "No, Ivy, no, it's Beltane, dear. A very uncertain time. It's May Day. Dark clouds are coming, and wind and thunderstorms. They'll give you a thrashing. Look, lovey, even Finbar says it's so." At that, Finbar tapped his beak soundly on a block of wood, bobbed his head in agreement, and glowered. Granny was so insistent that I turned the bike around and started back right away. She gave me a cloak to wear. Cloaks! And even though the day seemed just as pleasant as ever. Well, I'm sure Granny is not wrong. Let's see. At first, I felt hot and sweaty wearing the cloak. As I pedaled along, I noticed a line of creepy dark sky beginning to form in the west. Yikes! And a stiff wind came up from nowhere. Ugh! The going got tougher, began to struggle against the wind, while the sky dimmed and grew dark. Felt drops of rain on the brim of my hat. Had to stop and tie my chin straps to keep hat from blowing away. Should have known better than to doubt a crone and her 2 intermediates. It started to hail. There was going to be give me a break, chunky rainola. Okay. By the time I got home, I looked like something the familiar dragged in. Drat, in a hex upon bedweather surprises. Achoo, sorry for the sneeze on you, Grimoire, but now I got a terrible cold in my node. You know the feeling. Wheezing and sneezels, aches and chills, teeth chattering, a nose that should be wearing Nikes 'cause it's running, get it? Well, when this happens, the aunties go to code red high alert nursing mode, and before long they have trotted out the entire mother load of herbal remedies, tinctures, salves, balms, and other evil-smelling preparations. The thing is, all kitchen witches know they work eventually. Personally, I prefer to snuggle deep in bed with a hot bowl of chicken witch soup. For dessert, a bonbon or 3 would be welcome, and for diversion, some paper dolls or twig people. She's sick in bed. Poor Ivy. When you find yourself in the woods or in your own yard with nothing to do, take a few moments to make twig people. They are made from a variety of natural materials and come in all shapes and sizes. You can make twig people from pieces of wood, twigs, bark, leaves, berries, grass, flowers, acorns, pebbles, and whatever else appeals to you. Twig people made from pressed and dried leaves and flowers last longer, but some twig people aren't meant to survive for very long. It depends on what they are made of. Anything goes. So here's how you can make twig people. You may want to use a bit of glue, string, or paint to put on the finishing touches. You can hang your twig people from loops of string or grass, or you can simply prop them up on rocks or in tree branches where they are particularly attractive to the little folk. Twig people make good gifts for friends and relatives. You can even make one using catnip for your feline familiar. Yay, hooray! June 21st, Midsummer's Day. One of my favorites. Yay, hooray, it's Midsummer's Day. That means, Grimoire, we're going to have a midnight picnic, make a great bonfire, frolic wildly in the woods, and let our witchy hair down. The 21st of June is a holiday that is especially important to kitchen witches because it's a celebration of life, growing things, and most of all, the sun. And guess what, Grimoire? As a special deal, the eve of Midsummer's Day this year will also have a full moon. So, with this double-decker extravaganza, witches everywhere will really be having an all-out, rock-your-socks-off jamboree. Ahem. This is also the day when yours truly, Ivy, am officially 12 and a half years old. Yay. So it's her birthday. Anyway, on the eve of the great day, the aunties and I went to Granny Grackle's. Of course, Omen came too, riding with me in a basket on Aunt Thistle's bike. Granny's house at the edge of an awesome forest. A short skip down a narrow path, and there you are, in the clearing of the deep woods, a perfect setting for celebrating nature. As we walked along, Aunt Nettle pointed out the plants that are especially important on Midsummer's Day. You see, Ivy, she said, all things yellow are said to reinforce the strength of the sun. So dandelions, buttercups, and black-eyed Susans would be good to weave into our hair as garlands, and daisies too, because of their bright yellow centers. Oh yes, Ivy, and oak leaves, and climbing greens, tee-hee, like ivy itself. Granny cackled. The deep green leaves reflect the abundance of the green man, she said. He represents the growing energy of plant life. Sometimes you can see his green face in treetops or in clusters of leaves. It's like one minute he's there and the next minute he's not. He can seem a little spooky, but it's really a good sign when he appears. And we mustn't forget the little people, warned Aunt Thistle. The fairies, Ivy, the brownies, the wood sprites. Midsummer's Day is a festival for them, too. By now it was beginning to get dark, so we all got busy. The aunties laid out the picnic spread. I gathered dry wood for the fire. Omen prowled through the forest, looking for who knows what, and Finbar perched on a nearby bush. See the green man in the bush? Look how beautiful this is. The moon came up looking like a big fat orange. As the senior witch, and it was Granny's privilege to light the bonfire. She took out a wooden match, struck it on a nearby rock, and set the dry moss twigs and larger pieces of wood ablaze. Yay, we have a bonfire! We wove leaves and yellow flowers together to make garlands, which we placed on one another's heads. We took out our musical instruments and began to play. Aunt Nettle banged on the drum, Aunt Thistle strummed the ukulele, and I tooted on my recorder. Granny had left her bagpipes at home, since that's an instrument to be played solo or with other pipers. She's a bagpipe player, or blower, or whatever they're called. Keeping an eye on the fire, we had a great yummy feast. The celebration of Midsummer calls for any natural food that has already ripened. We had home-baked bread and yellow cheese with watercress, fresh field greens, and wild strawberries, and we all drank pink and foamy fairy punch. When fireflies appeared, Aunt Thistle mistook them for a flight of fairies and talked to them for gosh sakes. And what fun when we danced. Granny and the aunties let down their hair, which is really long and witchy, and it flew in swirls and tangles. But did we care? No, we did not. And here they are dancing. I love the art in this book. Oh, so beautiful. At last the stars dimmed, and the first light of dawn began to glow. The great moment arrived. A tiny pinprick of brilliant light appeared on the eastern horizon, the first blaze of the purest energy, the sun. We all held hands facing the ball of light and said, "O Father Sun, we greet thee and give thanks for your great warmth, your loving light, and your ability to make living things increase. Without you, the earth would be no more than a dead, icy darkness. We thank you for the life you provide and support." And there's their family tree and a little bit of information about Midsummer. It says, Midsummer is when the sun climbs to its highest point north of the equator. It's also the longest day and the shortest night of the year. Father Sun is at his greatest strength, but it's his limit too. And after this day, he weakens and begins to return south again. He passes over the equator during the autumnal equinox in September. He continues his journey and reaches the maximum distance from us during the winter solstice. That's the opposite of Midsummer and has the shortest day of the year and the longest night. October 31st, it's Samhain. Look at this. I mean, look at it. Or Halloween, as some call it. Grimoire, a time when every witch is buzzing with excitement, turning up her broom, forming covens, telling jokes, and generally getting ready for the biggest, witchiest night of the year. Oh, the parties, Grimoire, the bonfires, the music and dancing, the cavorting, the I don't know what. The aunties spent all day making newt noodles, giant's eyeballs, sugar fangs, and other assorted trick-or-treat sweets for the little kids, who would soon be coming to the door. Then the aunties would be off to join the festivities. Anyway, in the midst of our preparations, Aunt Nettle was horrified to discover we were immediately in danger of running out of honey. That just wouldn't do, as giant eyeballs without sufficient sticky stuff oozing out of them simply aren't the real thing. "Hold the fort till I get back, sister," she hollered. hopping on her bike and pedaling away to the beekeepers. "No problem," Aunt Thistle replied. She was busy carving a jack-o'-lantern for the window. She stepped back to admire her creation and then decided it just wasn't quite finished. "It needs something," she observed. "Doesn't it, Ivy?" Then it came to her. Wouldn't it be neat if Jack were wearing sunglasses? She rummaged around and found an old pair of Granny's that hadn't been worn in many years. Soon Jack was looking very cool in his shades, and she lit a candle. Now what Aunt Thistle didn't realize was that those sunglasses were so old that the material they were made of, ancient plastic, was highly flammable. When she went to carry the jack-o'-lantern to the window, the sunglasses burst into humongous flames. "Yeek!" she shrieked, running around the room in circles, fire fanning all around her head. What do you do with a grinning, flaming pumpkin face when you're holding it right in your hands, for gosh sakes? Omen, who is normally good in emergencies, took one look and hightailed it out to the nearest open window. Just then, Aunt Nettle pulled up on her bicycle. Seeing great dancing flames through the window, she threw down the bike and ran in. "To think, Sissel, the think," she sputtered. "I mean the sink, Thistle, the sink." Aunt Thistle got the message. She raced to the sink and dumped the jack-o'-lantern in. Quickly she turned on the water. Stinky black smoke shot up in the air with a hiss. In the ancient Celtic language, Samhain meant the end of summer. Just as we miss the warm days of summer, we also miss our dead ancestors as Samhain. For that reason, it has always been associated with ghosts and skeletons. Some witches also celebrate it as a sort of new year, so it's both a hallowed eve, as in Halloween, and a time for witchy parties. The first jack-o'-lanterns were carved from large turnips or beets and often carried a burning coal inside. Holes were carved to let out the light. Pumpkins were mostly unknown in Europe at the time. The pumpkin jack-o'-lantern that we all know and love is an American invention. What a mess! After that, the jack-o'-lantern's expression seemed kind of wonky and glum, but the panic was over. The aunties made a nice pot of tea to soothe their jangled nerves. Speaking of delicious hot drinks, it's coffee time. Don't drink coffee, kids, until you're 7. Sorry for my slurping. The aunties made a nice pot of tea to soothe their jangled nerves. Soon feeling better, they donned their Samhain costumes and took off, pausing only to wave goodbye and call out, "Ta-ta, Ivy, don't wait up for us." And that left me to deal with the ghosts, the goblins, and the very scary witches. Ivy's do's and don'ts. Even witches have rules. Here are some. Witches do protect the environment. We clean up our messes and those of our familiars. Yuck. We ride non-polluting vehicles whenever we can. Our brooms. Witches do wear aprons. Kitchen witches take pride in our appearance and dislike flour or splatters of batter on our lovely black garments. As the saying goes, witches wear any color as long as it's black. That's cute. Well, sometimes white. Witches do have gardens. Witches are the original nature girls. Country witches grow their own veggies. Even big city witches have a window boxes for growing their own fresh herbs, flowers, and vegetables. And witches do eat all their veggies, even their cauliflower and lima beans. Serious stuff. Witches do prefer low tech. That means candles over electric lights, bicycles and horses over cars, and handwritten letters over email, which some kitchen witches call eek-mail. Witches do prefer the moon over the sun. Many witches have sensitive skin, and a great number of them are redheads who are easily sunburned, such as, yours truly. Whenever you see a sunburnt redheaded person, you may be looking at a witch incognito. Witches don't argue while cooking food. Food prepared in an angry cauldron can lead to indigestion and gas. Witches don't complain about the weather. Senior witches can, however, change it when necessary, though through their advanced craft. Witches don't waste. All kitchen scraps go into the compost pile. Also, we don't leave the lights on or candles burning when there is no one in the room. Witches don't prepare potions under a waning moon. They won't turn out. Witches don't forget their manners, nor do they diss people unnecessarily. Witches are actually quite considerate of others, and any behavior to the contrary is thought to be un-witch-like. Witches don't eat children. At least vegetarian witches don't. December 21st to 22nd. How cool. It's Yule. Look at this beautiful art. Oh my gosh. I hope you're still with me. We're 40 minutes in, people, but we're almost done. Today, it's Midwinter's Eve, the time to adorn your home with evergreens like fir, holly, mistletoe, and ivy. And Grimoire, as you very well know, it is also my birthday. As of midnight tonight, I am 13, and that means two very important things. I am a teenager, and I am now officially an intermediate witch junior grade. Yippee, yahoo, and yay! The aunties invited the three trees, Cousin Delilah Rose from Louisiana, Mysterious Uncle Burr the Hedge Witch, Baba Yaga from Russia, La Strega from Italy, Senorita Consulia La Corianda from Panama, and my own magical mum, Thorn Prickle Tree. How's that for a lineup, Grimoire? Granny is using an expansion spell to convert a small broom closet in her little house to a grand ballroom. That way everyone can display their costumes in full glory without any toes, paws, or claws getting stepped on. I can't wait. Gorgeous. Later. Well, Grimoire, the party couldn't have been better if it tried. Everyone had a great time, especially me. The winter solstice is the longest night of the year, and this year there was no moon at all, so it was a dark night too. This relaxed, mysterious Uncle Burr, who suffers from a strange moon affliction. I wonder if he's a werewolf. He totally danced the night away with Cousin Delilah Rose. It was funny to see a hedgehog dancing with an owl. My uncles, the three trees, were charming as usual, and Mum and Dad looked like they were made for each other. But here's what I've been dying to tell you, Grimoire. This is what I got for my birthday, along with a whole load of other awesome neat things. First, a new book from Aunt Nettle and Thistle. They specially bound it and charged it with energy, so it's all ready to receive kitchen witch ideas as my next grimoire. And get this, it won't even be visible to the non-witch. Next, a black feather from the bosom of Finbar. This was selected and charmed by Granny for use as a wand. Right now, it is only for setting spells to make sure they don't dissolve before their time. As my skills improve, its power will grow with me. Cool, huh? And last of all, my very own broom. The three trees had a hand in making it, and Daddy Bramble putting on the finishing touches. The moon enchanted it with the power to fly true, so that it may not wander off course, but always deliver me to my chosen destination. Like an arrow, Mum said, straight to its target, and it shall come when called for. Goodbye then, Grimoire. This is just about your last page. It's been fun and a great year. Now I'm looking forward to my next one. Thanks for being my book of lore and witchery. Love, Ivy. And there she is flying off. And I love this dedication in the back of the book. I think it's gorgeous. It says, this book is lovingly dedicated to my wife, Anne Marie Anneli Drawson, 1954 to 2005. Annie conceived of this book and was both the inspiration for it and its guiding light. She also gathered all the research material, leaving me with the easy stuff, the writing and illustration. Annie appears here as Thorn. At a gathering of crones and intermediates, there was a junior witch present. What a beautiful woman. So thank you, everyone, for joining me for story time. We are about 45 minutes in, so I am so sorry. The book was a little bit longer than I thought it would be, but I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that this inspires you to connect with your inner child. If I can do it, you can do it. And I hope that you have an amazing and wonderful and magical day. Thanks for hanging out with me.